It was an eventful day in the stock market today. We saw a very sharp sell-off in the middle of the day due to increasing rates on bonds. And we saw the CEO of DWave make a $14 million sale of his shares or options. And we saw DWave pull back a little bit with many other stocks in the stock market. We also saw some of our smaller cap growth stocks like SealsQ and BigBear.ai start to make moves during the day before we hit this sharp sell-off. So we're going to go into all of this. So we're going to cover some recent news in the quantum industry. We're going to talk about the sale of the DWave stock by the CEO. And we're going to look at a few news articles, and then we're going to do price analysis on SealsQ, DWave QBTS, and finally BigBear.ai. So we're going to do all of this. My goal is to get it done in under 20 minutes. So let's jump in. All right, guys. So this morning I posted a video, and despite this really crazy sell-off, take a look at this massive sell-off we had. We're having a pretty nice day in the Qs, and then suddenly the bond market just went absolutely crazy. And we had a 2% dump in a matter of like 30 minutes. And what was happening? Well, on Monday, the 30-year Treasury yield briefly broke above the 5% threshold, and that freaked everyone out. What did the stock market look like? The heat map was blood red. So everything except Google, who's having their I/O conference this week, and even Meta held some ground, was very red. Now, interestingly enough, if we go to the quantum watch list, we see that I posted a video on the channel this morning, and these were two of the only green stocks in my portfolio on the day. I mean, there were a few more, but the quantum cybersecurity plays held their ground even in the shifting market. And Google did well, and then we see there was sell-off, and we got some pretty significant pullback in some quantum stocks. 8% for Arqit, 8% for QUBT, and 7% for QBTS. So we're going to go into price analysis on DWave QBTS. I've marked out some levels already that I'm keeping an eye on. I saw the Zacks article, Bull of the Day, DWave Quantum, and I went in and highlighted it. So the article is just talking about NVIDIA, the drama, and kind of where things are headed with all of this quantum stuff. And one of the quotes from the article is, QPUs are not only very far from competing with GPUs, they will likely never replace them. And Jensen made sure everyone knew that when he graciously invited those leaders for a powwow a month later after completely dismissing the industry. He goes on to talk about the Advantage 2 system, which is expected to deliver a significant performance gain with double the coherence and increased connectivity. He talks about the Jülich Supercomputing Center and the Los Alamos National Laboratory. He also talks about Dale Moore, president and CEO of defense contractor Davidson, who are both quoted in the press release regarding their continued R&D. And I think I've said Georgia, that Davidson is located in Georgia. My apologies. It's located in Huntsville, Alabama, and it's a trusted provider of advanced engineering and technical solutions supporting the U.S. Department of Defense. Ahead of the announcement, QBTS shares were already a Zacks number 2 ranked because EPS estimates had moved significantly higher between the company's last 2 quarterly reports. And then, of course, we have the tailwind of Qatar and that deal. So another fortunate trade win for DWave this past week may be the sizable investments and partnerships being lavished on a private competitor. It was thought last year that Quantinuum could fetch a valuation as high as $10 billion if it IPO'd this year. That estimate is probably higher now. And the article goes on to say the future is coming fast. And while stock valuations like those of QBTS, Rigetti, and IonQ may be ahead of their revenues, there is excitement among investors big and small, from Qatar to Queens. The QPUs will change the world as fast GPUs in the coming decade. So very good article there from Zacks. Let's take a look at this article from the Quantum Insider. So Business Software Group urges Congress to reauthorize the Quantum Initiative. So the Business Software Alliance is urging Congress to reauthorize and expand the National Quantum Initiative Act to keep the U.S. competitive in the global race to deploy quantum technologies. In a letter to lawmakers, BSA warned that other countries are moving beyond research and toward commercialization and national security uses, calling for a federal special coordinator for quantum leadership. The group emphasized a whole-of-nation strategy to integrate quantum tech into the economy, train a skilled workforce, and build resilient supply chains for industry adoption. So there's getting to be a few more followers on this channel, and some of you may have connections in government or may know some Congress people. This is 100% true that the U.S., in my estimation, and we've been saying it on this channel for quite a while, we're starting to lag behind other countries. And while we're talking, and you have to look at the language here, like urging Congress to reauthorize, and that other countries are moving beyond research towards commercialization and national security uses. So that's my main concern, is the national security concern. So as much as I would love to pretend it isn't a problem, it is a problem. And it's good to see that this push is coming. So I marked out this quote here. In the 7 years since the passage of the NQIA, other countries have begun developing and implementing quantum strategies that move beyond science, research, and development, and increasingly focus on economic and national security, commercialization, and deployment. In order to continue to compete, we must build on investments in research and development to also commercialize quantum technologies and deploy them throughout our economy through a coordinated whole-of-nation approach that delivers value for citizens and customers. Winning the quantum race will require not only a reauthorization of the NQIA, but also new provisions that build on the proven framework to ensure that America is not only in research and development, but in commercialization and deployment. So again, some very direct and assertive language here. Looking ahead, congressional leaders are expected to take up the reauthorization of NQIA later this year. Lawmakers from both parties have expressed interest in expanding its scope, with some pushing for a larger focus on national security. Yes, they definitely should. The winners of the quantum race will be the countries, businesses, and communities that are able to deploy these technologies and deliver value for citizens and customers. America needs to continue investing in the efforts to set forth in the NQIA while also driving commercialization and deployment through a coordinated whole-of-nation approach. So this isn't talked about enough, but it just occurred to me that if you're investing in quantum, you're helping, especially if it's a U.S. company, you're helping the U.S. You're picking up some of the slack for the U.S. because U.S. government should be aggressively funding quantum research, and these bills should be passed and money should be going into this research yesterday. That's how I feel about it. All right, so we're going to look at this Form 144 from DWave. So Dr. Alan Baratz did a Class A common stock sale today, and he sold 845,813 shares, $14,378,821. So it's never a great feeling for an investor in a company to see the CEO of said company selling shares. We saw Palantir shareholders punish Palantir when Alex Karp public that he was going to sell shares. This happens all the time across industries, and I have mixed feelings about it. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I have mixed feelings about it. I want to go to the DWave chart just to make a quick point here. Okay, this is how I've kind of come to terms with this. So we have the quantum crash, and we go as DWave investors. We go from 1053, 978. We plummet down to 459, and that day, after Jensen's comments to today, actually the end of the trading day, we've seen about a 240% increase in our investment, and largely in part thanks to Dr. Baratz's leadership. And there have been a number of headwinds for DWave, and those include other tech CEOs talking badly about quantum or spewing misinformation. That also includes a tariff and fear-laden market leading the company through all of these things. So if you've been a DWave shareholder like me, I'm okay with Alan having a reward for the rewards that he's brought all of us. That's kind of my interpretation of all of it. Like I said, I have mixed feelings on it. It's never a good feeling to see the CEO of a company you love selling a lot of shares.
Tell us about the drivers of growth from here, and how do you think about keeping up that momentum?
Yeah. So there are two components to our business model. One is quantum compute as a service. And so for customers that care just about applications to solve hard business problems that can run better on a quantum computer, they access our systems through quantum compute as a service, our cloud-based service offering, and pay us on a recurring revenue basis for that access. Then there are customers that are interested in deeper research investigations leveraging our quantum computers. For those customers, they need more control over more of the operating parameters of the system than is possible through our cloud service. For those customers, we're now opening up the opportunity for them to purchase systems. Our significant revenue jump in Q1, we reported $15 million in revenue, which is a 500% increase year over year, was due to our first system sale. And so we're quite excited about that system sale opportunity now opening up for us.
All right. And I don't know if there's an...
So the large question in my mind as a DWave shareholder, are these results repeatable? Will they be able to come in Q2 and beat expectations? Let's take a look at the last part of this, because he talks a little bit about financials.
Acronym, but when you said quantum computing as a service, it made me immediately think QCAAS, which it probably already is an acronym within your world. I'm curious to know, okay, so, kudos to you all on that revenue milestone, especially the jump quarter over quarter. You saw shares surge significantly this year. I mean, you all are seeing shares up, at my last check, more than 90%. So looking ahead, when you think about the next big milestones for you all, what does the next 12 months look like for DWave?
Yeah, so obviously we continue to focus on developing more powerful quantum computers. So now that we've announced the general availability of Advantage 2, we are working on Advantage 3. And we're actually quite excited about that technology as well. That will be for the first time ever what we call a multi-chip system. So up until now, we've always increased the size of our processors by putting more qubits on a chip. With Advantage 3, we will now start interconnecting chips to grow the size of the processor much more rapidly.
And we've heard other quantum companies also are taking a similar approach to basically putting these chipboards together instead of trying to squeeze more qubits into one chip. And we also heard at DWave's conference in the keynote that Dr. Baratz delivered, they are very aggressive with their product roadmap. He talked about the release of Advantage 2 just a month and a half ago, and just yesterday, day before yesterday, can't remember at this point, they released their Advantage 2 for commercial sale and availability. So Advantage 3 may not be as far away as you might think. They are very aggressive with their product roadmap.
And then, of course, from a go-to-market perspective, we will continue to focus on growing our quantum compute as a service business. And yes, we call it QCAS, our QCAS business, as we bring on more customers solving more interesting problems. And finally, when I talked about that supremacy result, one of the things that we have recently published a paper on is the ability to use that computation to actually create an entirely new type of blockchain architecture based on quantum proof of work rather than the traditional proof of work.
Sounds exciting. I don't know much about blockchain, so if you do, and you know the significance of that research, please leave a comment and help educate the community. Let's move on to price analysis. So QBTS today had, all right, so QBTS has made all-time highs multiple times in the last few trading sessions. And what are we seeing now with DWave? So what we're seeing, if we look at the 5-day chart, is we were seeing DWave getting rejected off of 1762 multiple times. And even at market open today, we actually had a 1780 spike. And I think in pre-market, let's look at extended hours. It was even higher than that. So in pre-market, this thing had gone up to 1948, which is pretty crazy, and it sold down, and so with the rest of the market, what we're seeing, we're going to go back to regular trading hours. So we were kind of holding this channel between 1612 and 1762, and we saw 1612 act as support at least 6, 7, 8 times. And when the whole market flushed down, DWave actually broke down to a different level, 1496, and then started using 1496. The enthusiasm for buying through the whole market was just kind of zapped. Like you saw that heat map, it was zapped. I really would have liked to see DWave get back above and at least close above this 1612. So the question is, from here, what do we expect? Well, we have the negative news. We're going to just call it negative news that the CEO sold shares. So that's a headwind. We also know that the bond sale wasn't positive at all for the markets. Will the markets bounce back tomorrow? And can DWave continue this rally? Or will some of these supports come into play that we've been talking about? So I'm going to just go over a quick bear case. So in a bear case, we'd come down to 1496, and then we'd fill this gap down to 1326 and potentially use that as a support. In an ultra bear case, if more bad news is to come, we could see a drop down to 1192. So if you're concerned about losing money in this trade, set a stop loss and protect yourself. I'm long, and I'm happy with the shares that I have, so I'm not too concerned about daily price movements, but I like to look at the charts with y'all and talk about the possibilities. So in a bull case, what I'd like to see is DWave open tomorrow above 1612, use 1612 as support, and start building some momentum to retest all-time highs. Let's take a look at LAES. So LAES SealsQ is a stock I've talked about a number of times recently, and actually showed some pretty considerable strength and broke above one of my key levels. So I've talked about this a number of times, but basically 388 is really the number to keep in mind on LAES. If you see a break above 388, which we saw today, that is a very bullish signal for SealsQ. And ARQQ reports earnings before market tomorrow, and we could see a very sympathetic move. If ARQQ comes with good numbers, watch out. LAES and ARQQ could really move. So if we measure this total move from Thursday, May 25th to the peak today, we've seen an 84% move. That's no joke. That's a huge move. So the peak of the rally today had us at 433, and we've seen a number of rejections here at 388 once again. And it does look like another line here is potentially warranted. So we're going to draw that line. So we can see this 344 has acted as resistance, and as charts often do, that line is now acting as support. So we're kind of in this 344 to 398 channel. So what you would like to see is LAES break through and move up. It's also going to need to move through 433 as well. Now, it does have a potential downside if the macro worsens, and it could just fill the gap and move down. So keep your eye on LAES. In the 6-month chart. If we look at let's just look at the day candles for the last 6 months. This is where we are. So we got a long mountain to climb, and we've been stuck down here for a long time. Today, it did look like it wanted to move. And if ARQQ or additional quantum tailwinds come into play, we could see this stock start to build its recovery back into this range where we have significant price history. And if we can get above the $5 level, then we can start talking about $5 to $10, but that might be a little greedy at this time. Now, the most interesting price action of the day, in my opinion, was BigBear.ai. And BigBear.ai has been kind of creeping and sneaking for the last, I want to say, since April 21st. And it happens slowly, and then it happens all at once. So if we look at the move from the April rising support, the rising support being this blue line here, we've seen a 73% increase in BigBear. Now, what's interesting about BigBear, and I've kind of written out this significant resistance, and it's so funny how those lines come into play. It's like, look at the lines that I've drawn and how it is just beaten up and just staying between 351 and 383 and just bouncing kind of like this all day. And then these past few trading sessions. And then today, intraday, we saw this really bullish rally just out of nowhere. We had an 18% pop. We break through $4, and $4 is a pretty critical psychological level for BigBear.ai, and it's also a level that's come into play in the past. If we look at the price history, we can see that BigBear has a decent amount of price history above $4. So that's what we want to see. That's the key level to get through. We need to get through 383, and then we need to get through $4, and then we need to hold above $4. So in our bullish case, we do something like this. Now, BigBear can move with velocity. We know that it made some of its biggest gains in just a couple trading sessions. And at this point, I would say BigBear is definitely flirting with a bullish reversal. So they just need one piece of good news or something bullish, and the stock is going to go boom. All right, guys. So we covered a bunch of news. We did React. We did 3 stock charts and went a little bit over the amount of time that I wanted to, but hopefully you've got some value out of this. If you have, do me a favor, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't. We'll talk to you later. Good luck in the market tomorrow.